Hello students, welcome to the sixth part of episode 1 of Basic Operations with Microsoft Excel. So in the previous episode we discussed about min, max, large and small functions. In this part we are going to discuss about rank function. So here we have the same data sheet, we have the list of students, we have marks scored by the students in the subjects of mathematics and science, and the total marks is there. Now based on the total marks we need to give the rank. So in order to do the rank, we are going to learn a new function called as rank function. So any function we need to enter with equal to sign and then rank, open bracket. So here we need to give two inputs. One is number and second is the reference. So when we rank, how do we rank? Say for example, if you want to rank this number, so we need to know which number am I going to rank, and then we need the reference list of data. We need to compare this particular number with that list and find out the relative position of that number within that list. So that's why here we need to give two input. So here the first is the number. Either you can give the number directly, or here in this case I'm going to use the cell reference, which is E2 cell, comma space, and then I need to give the rank reference. So I select this entire column of data and then close bracket, press enter. So this gives the rank of this particular number. So same thing we need to repeat it for all the numbers. This is specific to that particular number which you want to rank, or that particular cell value in that cell which you want to rank. So we need to copy and paste the formula, or we need to write the formula everywhere. But there's a small problem here. Generally what do? We type the formula and then we just double click and then it should give the rank. But if I do that, now you could see here actually 149 is the highest mark. 145 and 148, they are not the highest mark, but still Excel has ranked them as number 1. Why is this happening is there's a small problem. We know that whenever we copy a formula which contains the cell reference to another cell, relative to your pasting operation where you are pasting, the cell reference will also change. For instance, we entered this formula E2, E2 is to E11. And then what I did, I copied this formula and then I pasted in the next cell, which is below that particular cell F2. So because I am moving down the row, what happens to my formula is, in the formula, the row reference keeps increasing. The column reference is the same because I am still in the same column. So the column reference E is the same, but then if you observe here, it is changed to E3, E3 is to E12. Now the first input, which is the number, the cell has incremented from E2 to E3. That is correct. We want that to be incremented because in the first instance we took this number and we wanted to find the rank. The second instance we want to pick the second number, which is 140, and we wanted to find the rank. But in the process what happens is the reference also changes. When we copy, the first input should change. It should, from here it was E2, here in the next cell it should become E3, in the next cell it should become E4, next cell it should become E5, the next cell it should become E6, like that in the last cell it should become E11. That is correct. But in the second input, the cell reference has got incremented from E3 to E12, which is wrong because we have the data in the cell range from E2 to E11. It should remain the same. Because of that, what happened is in the last cell, if you observe, the cell reference is moved from E11 to E20. That is totally wrong. And that's why we are getting a wrong rank position over there. So when we copy paste directly, the cell reference also gets incremented or decremented according to a relative position of our copy paste operation. So to avoid that, what we need to do is we need to understand the concept of cell referencing. Cell referencing, we know every cell has got a cell address. The way we reference the cell is we mention the column index and then we mention the row index. So this particular cell we call it as the F2 cell, this particular cell we call it as H5. So when we write a cell address like H5 or G2 or F2, this way of writing the cell reference is called relative cell referencing. So there are two types of cell referencing. One is relative cell referencing and another one is absolute cell referencing. So by default, when you type a formula like, say here what I have typed is E2 comma E2 is to E11, this is called relative cell referencing. When we mention, say for example, G2, this is a relative cell reference. Absolute cell references, before and after the column index, we need to insert the dollar symbol. So it would look like this, $G, $2. So the same cell G2 is being written as $G, $2. This way of representing a cell address is called as absolute cell referencing. Now what is the difference is, now over here I want this E2 to become E3, then to become E4, E5, E6 in every instance when I copy the formula. I don't want this cell range to change, means I want this E2 and E11 to remain the same when I copy and paste the formula. So what we need to do is, this particular portion which we don't want to change, we should convert that referencing into absolute cell referencing. After that only we should copy and paste the formula. This one should be in relative referencing, because in relation to our copy and paste operation, this cell reference should increment. So this should remain in relative cell referencing, whereas the second input should be converted into absolute cell referencing. So this has to be done before we copy the formula. Otherwise, many times, without understanding, if we do it, all our calculations will go wrong. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert the second input into absolute cell reference. So I have converted E2 is to E11. I have converted this into $E, $2 is to $E, $11. So this way I have converted the cell range into absolute cell referencing. So I'm going to press enter. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the formula. We'll see how Excel has responded. So now if I open the second one, now you can see here from E2 in the second instance it has become E3. But look at the cell reference. The cell reference has been retained. Same way in the last cell, it should be 11, but the cell reference still remains the same. So this way, the absolute cell referencing helps us to hold on to the formula. Otherwise, the formula will get altered and your calculations would also go wrong. So before we do it, we need to convert, before we copy and paste, we need to convert the relative cell referencing into absolute cell referencing. This is used in many places, not only in rank function. In many formulas and functions, when you do some calculations or analysis, this relative cell referencing and absolute cell referencing would be very handy. We need to understand the concept of relative cell referencing and absolute cell referencing, and you can use it in any function. There's another function called as VLOOKUP, index match, HLOOKUP. Even in those functions, when you use this relative and absolute cell referencing would be really required. So the concept of this relative cell referencing and absolute cell referencing is very, very important, which we need to keep in mind. And this should be remembered, not only for using it in rank function, it will be useful in many functions. So that concept should be very clear. So we have learned three things. One is the rank function we have learned, and then we have learned about relative cell referencing and absolute cell referencing, and we have learned how to use it and when to use it in the formula, and we have also understood how it is different, the relative cell referencing and absolute cell referencing. When we copy paste a particular formula, how does it work, has also been explained. So with this, we come to the end of this particular lecture. See you in the next lecture. Please subscribe, like the video, share it with others, let everyone learn Excel. Thank you so much. Bye bye.